Hey everybody, I've got the solder finished on this guard and I'm going to clean it up, see how clean it really is underneath all this junk. I'm going to use this buffing wheel and a brass rod to scrape it clean. I wanted to just take the time to show you guys the process in which I do that. So hopefully this turns out to be a pretty good video. Alright, here I am raking the buffing wheel, trying to get anything gross off of there. Make sure that nice fresh compound I'm putting on now isn't contaminated with anything from the past. Buffing the edge of the blade here, it's not actually sharp. Then I'm coming back to where the two grinds meet in the center of the blade. Since it's a hollow grind, you got to hit it from both sides to actually get the mirror polish in there. So the top bevel is still messed up from the baking soda and the compound, and the bottom one is very shiny and bright. Then I'll go ahead and polish out the rest of these bevels here on the blade. You'll notice that I'm holding the tip of the knife down. That's a safety precaution. If the knife is ripped out of my hand, it'll just shoot down and away from me. You always want to work below the center of the spindle. You can see my glove got caught there. The buffer is actually a very dangerous piece of equipment in the knife shop. A lot of people won't even work with them. Some people even use chainmail as a protective vest. People have actually died from using buffing wheels or buffers in the past. So very important to use safety precautions, any that you can. You know, I've got gloves just in case the knife's ripped out of my hand and don't want to cut up my hands there. I'm still basically just polishing up the blade here. I haven't even really got to the solder yet. Yes, right here I'm getting to the solder now. You'll notice that I'm wearing eye protection and ventilation. The respirator may not be necessary, but I figure if whatever is polishing up this steel and it's capable of making a steel shine like that, I don't want to breathe it, so I go ahead and use a mask. I like to keep my wheel clean with the rake multiple times. Here I'm buffing the face of the guard, trying to clean any of that junk up off the bottom there. You can see the wheel trying to grab the knife there a couple of times. It starts spitting out big threads of cotton. This is a muslin cotton wheel. I'm using yellow sun sheen compound from Rio Grande. It's a jeweler's rouge for buffing. I think it works extremely well. It's the only stuff I use in my shop. Alright, so getting the radiuses there, those can be pretty tricky. Gotta work around that rounded edge of the ricasso. You can see I'm coming in and getting the other side now. Ooh. Spraying all kinds of stuff there. It's a new compound will always cut faster and cleaner, so you just, if it stops cleaning anything up, just rake that wheel and then put more compound on there. It's starting fresh, and it's really the cotton wheel is not going to do anything to this steel. It's all the compound that you put on the wheel that's actually going to be doing any of the cleaning and cutting there. Just hitting those edges real quick. Last little corners. Checking it out, make sure it looks good all over from every point. Oh, wasn't happy with something. Gotta make sure that that blade is pointing away from you. If you're gonna rake the buffer, I mean, honestly, you should put the knife down if you're gonna rake the buffer. That's probably a terrible habit that I have, to hold the knife in my hand while I'm raking the buffer. I would suggest don't do that. Just cleaning up that straight edge best I can. All right, so after the initial buffing, this is what we've got. You can see some inconsistencies there. I'll go ahead and clean that up with the brass rod, and that'll look a lot better. All right, so I got this little 1/8 inch brass rod cut to a chisel, and I'm going to use that to scrape along the solder here, pressing it essentially against the ricasso and the face of the guard, and just sliding it across the solder to try to smooth it out. Coming in with the brass rod here, gonna use that chisel point to rest up against the ricasso and the face of the guard. With very steady pressure, I am beginning to slide the, ooh, knife moved. Gonna have to readjust, retighten, get it extra tight this time. Come back in with the brass rod here. Try to get back to where I was. I'll slide that rod across. You want to try to get a nice, smooth, steady push across. You don't want to be slipping and sliding. You'll get different angles, different facets on your solder. So the smoother you can do it in one pass, the better off you'll be in the long run. Gonna slowly do a little bit at a time until I reach the end. And at the end there, you really want to back off on the pressure, or else you'll slip off the edge. What I'm doing is focusing on the top and bottom lines of the solder, trying to make them all even and smooth. And I'll just keep coming back across over and over and over, getting little tiny bits of solder off until it stops looking wavy, looks nice and flush. Okay, here's a look at the solder after I've cleaned it up with the brass rod. I will go back and I will rebuff it just to try to straighten some of these lines out a little more. And then the blade will be done. Alright, moving back to the buffer. Gotta rake it clean. Don't hold the knife in your hand when you're raking a buffer. Putting on fresh compound, get a nice clean cut. Hitting the corners. They're always troublemakers. Hitting both bottom corners, then I can flip the knife over, get the other corners, get the ricassos, the radiuses of the ricasso. Go ahead and hit the other half of the ricasso, hit the other bottoms, get those corners. Now we're going to polish up the face of the guard. This is all just to try to keep straightening those lines that are all wavy and jacked up when you initially get the rough solder on there. It's all just an attempt to keep straightening and cleaning and polishing it all up. Alright, so I've gone ahead and buffed up the solder joint. Then I used the 1/8 inch brass rod to scrape off any excess solder. And then I rebuffed to even out the lines. As you can see, after I've cleaned up all the buffing compound, we have a nice presentation grade solder here. Now I'll just tape up the blade and I'll finish up the handle.